The holidays are coming. Find a gift for someone special with jewelry from Blue Nile. Right now, Blue Nile is offering special Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals. Save up to 50% on the season's most stunning trends. Blue Nile offers an endless selection of bold gold styles, gemstone jewelry, and classic diamond pieces. And now, for a limited time, get 36 months special financing on minimum purchases of $1,000. Restrictions apply. See BlueNile.com for details. That's BlueNile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Seed. Seed's DSO1 is a 2-in-1 probiotic and prebiotic designed for whole body health. Formulated with 24 clinically and scientifically studied strains, DSO1 offers benefits in and beyond the gut. See why DSO1 is the probiotic recommended by top doctors and nutritionists. Go to seed.com/Spotify for 25% off Seed's DSO1 Daily Symbiotic.
Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
Hello and welcome to the Paddock and The Pavilion with Stephen Wallace. In each show, Stephen will interview someone connected to the world of horse racing or cricket.
Hello everyone. There is no live guest today, but for our 100th episode, I have put together 2 compilation episodes, one for cricket and one for horse racing. I hope you enjoy the mix of them both. It was fun to make, but much harder work than I thought. Our first horse racing guest and our first ever guest on the Paddock and the Pavilion was Italian apprentice jockey and former ballerina Gaia Boni. This is how the first show began back in July 2020. Welcome to the Paddock, Gaia.
Thank you for having me, Stephen.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Gaia was shortly followed by Rab Havlin in episode 3, a key man at Clarehaven. Rab returned in the spring of 2021 for episode 44, when he was looking forward to the new flat turf season. And as an old-timer, if I can say that, do you still get excited about the new turf season and returning to the Rowley Mile?
Yeah, I think if you didn't, you shouldn't be in the game, really. It's, that's at a time of the year when you have expectations for horses. Obviously, some let you down, but some exceed expectations. So it's always a very exciting time. And, the spring is in the air and everybody's got a lighter step and, you've got the whole season to look forward. Good times and bad.
A flat jockey who tasted success at the Breeders' Cup 2020 was Northern-based jockey Tom Eaves, who joined me in episode 33 to talk about his win on glass slippers in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint.
It was an amazing week, and that we were over there for a week, so you've got the build up of it and everything. But to actually come away and win, it's massive. So it was great.
It was the first European horse to win the turf sprint in the history of the Breeders' Cup as well.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. The team at home had done an amazing job with her, and she was absolutely electric on the night, and we'll never forget that.
And how different was it riding a sprint race in America than in this country?
Obviously it's different track. I was sort of aware there was going to be a lot of pace on, but at the end of the day, it's another race, and that's the way you got to look at it, and go through the form like you would any race, and try and keep it as simple as possible.
And I read you had some advice from Ryan Moore as well on how to ride glass slippers.
Yeah, it was the same as anything. I'd never ridden there before. I'd obviously watched plenty of the races from there and everything, but I just asked him how he thought that the track was riding, and how he'd experienced it in the past. I mean, he is the best, and he's a great fella, just Going into any race like that, you just try and get as much information as you can, and then you just ride your race as you find it. Then.
So was that the first ride you'd had in America?
I had ridden at Belmont a few years ago. Yeah, but it was my first ride at the Breeders' Cup.
Over the sticks, I was joined by Tabitha Worsley, Paige Fuller, and Matty Batchelor. Tabitha had the thrill of riding sub-lieutenant in the 2021 Grand National. The horse was trained by her mum, Georgie Howe. Here's a short clip about her memorable family day at Aintree in episode 94. And as for the race itself, how did he take to the fences and the 40 runners in a race?
He loves it. He's such a professional. I mean, on the whole, you just leave him to it. He's got the experience round there, and I learned very quickly on top with the best thing you can do is let a horse just find the fence and don't be asking too much, and they take to it or they don't. And I was lucky enough he'd been around before and he was very good, so I just got to sit and enjoy him, and they went very, very fast, which you'd expect in a 40 runner handicap. But he just kept plugging away, and he just stays all day. He just probably doesn't have the gears that he would have had 2 years ago. And
he got round, he came 14th of the 15 finishers. How did that feel when you finished the Grand National? Oh,
it's unbelievable to say. We always went there sort of hoping, first things first, safe round, get round complete, everyone back in one piece, and if we could then finish top half, we'd be over the moon, and he's done exactly that, so couldn't be happier.
Paige Fuller celebrated the 100th winner of her career last year, and in episode 67, Paige recalled her brief stint at university, yes, it was brief, before she decided horse racing was the life for her.
Yeah, I did half a term at Exeter after a gap year. Yeah.
Oh, so you had a gap year and then you went to university and then you left after a short period, was that?
Yeah, it was. I did 3 months working in France when I first left school, and then I came back and helped my parents train point to points at home, and was just riding out all over the place. And when I went to university, to be honest, I ended up mostly riding out every morning because I got bored sat around at uni, and I probably made it to 3 lectures. So I very quickly realised that university I could always go back to, but my riding wasn't going to wait. So I just kicked on and tried to make the most of my riding.
Without much doubt, the most entertaining jockey to feature on the Paddock and the Pavilion was Matty Batchelor. As well as Wocket Woy, Matty looked back at his days riding Coney and Carruthers for the Bradstock family. But perhaps Matty's most unique days racing came when he rode on the flat and over the jumps on the same day at 2 different racecourses. Only Matty could do something like that.
It was in the week, it was on a Saturday, I think, and Charlie, he was talking to me in the morning at breakfast. He said, because I'd also had, Gary was down at the yard by then, he was working there as well. And I'd got my flat licence as well. I'd got an apprentice licence. So I was riding a couple on the flat as well because I was quite light, just to sort of tidy myself up a bit. That didn't work. And so Charlie said, you've got a choice. You can go to Lingfield and ride in the apprentice race, 5 furlongs, and ride my horse called Lift Boy. Or, he said, you can go to Windsor and ride in your first chase over 3 mile.
A bit of a difference there.
A lot of difference, yeah. And the sprinter had a real good chance of winning because he'd won a few. And I was like, no. And obviously, I'd rode over hurdles. So the next phase, I wanted to ride over fences. And this horse was like, he was an old schoolmaster. So he said, have a think about it. He said, let me know what you think. So I'd come out, and Gary had got the gist of the conversation. And he come up to me, he said, go back in there. He said, tell my dad, he said, you can ride in the first at Lingfield. He said, and you will easy make it to Windsor for the 3 o'clock, the handicap chase. He said, you'll do it easy, not a problem. So I was quite, at that stage, I was quite sort of scared of Charlie because he'd tell you what he thought. And so I said, Mr. Moore, I said, I was just chatting to Gary, I said, he thinks I'll be able to do the two sort of races. He said, I'll be able to ride in the first and I'll have plenty of time to drive to Windsor. He's like, no, you're not doing it. No, you're not doing it. And I sort of started muttering and then luckily Gary come in and he said, Dad, he said, you've got plenty of time. He said, you'll be able to go to Lingfield, get in the car, and he'll be able to go to Windsor and ride in the 3-mile handicap chase, he said. And Mr. Charlie reluctantly agreed. He said, if you don't make it, there'll be trouble and all that. But I had plenty of time. So, yeah, it was great. I went to Lingfield, rode in the apprentice race over 5 furlongs and won that, and got in the car, went and rode in my first 3-mile handicap chase around Windsor and finished 5th.
Oh, so you won the first one, but what you'd not see that done today, would you? You can't do it today because you can't ride it.
You can't do it today, yeah. I don't think many be won a 5 furlong sprint and then rode in a 3-mile handicap chase.
National hunt racing is a dangerous sport, and I had the great pleasure of speaking to former jockey Jacob Pritchard Webb in episodes 78 and 79. Jacob had a devastating fall at Auteuil on the 23rd of June 2020. Which left him paralysed from the waist down. In a heartwarming episode, Jacob opened up about the pressures of riding and how he is now looking to the future.
And immediately the first thing I did was try to look towards the future and kind of, in a strange way, there was a bit of a relief that, because I was still trying to make it as a jockey and it was always playing on my mind and it was always getting me down that I hadn't made it and will I make it? In a strange way, there was a bit of a relief that was over. That pressure that I was putting on myself to make it as a professional jockey because I wanted it so badly, that was gone. So then I could kind of then
there was
look
a
forward.
Release thing. There was a release from that sort of pressure.
Yeah. And then also I remember just wanting to see my friends a lot. And it made me instantly realize that, God, there is so much more to life and how important my friends are, because I was almost putting everything
into one
riding
thing.
Was everything. And my social life was having an effect. And, I was very tired and therefore miserable and didn't want to be, and it was just like, I was almost like in a small way, kind of, it was a little bit of, I was quite glad in a small way. Probably a bit.
How did it affect your parents? Because they must have spent a lot of time in a foreign country.
Well, I joked that they basically got they got a summer in Paris, but it wasn't quite the weather circumstance. Yeah, they were. It wasn't quite in the circumstances that they would have liked. They've been fantastic. Yeah, they've. I mean, from what I've seen, they've been as strong as a rock. Obviously, I can't comment on what happens behind closed doors, but of course, it's been hard. It's been hard for all of them, but I suppose it's funny, they take strength from how I have dealt with it, but then the reason I've dealt with it so well is because of them. So, but it was definitely a blow on all of the family, grandparents included.
As an update, Jacob advised me only last week that he is now concentrating on his table tennis and working for Sky Sports Racing a few times a month and doing some bloodstock work. A brave young man who is now trying to live as normal a life as he can and enjoy it. Jacob will return to the Paddock and the Pavilion later in 2022, but do go back and take a listen to this inspiring young man in episodes 78 and 79. And if you follow French jump racing, catch him on Sky Sports Racing. On the subject of the pressures that jockeys are under, in episode 68, I spoke to award-winning film director and former jockey Nathan Horrocks about his powerful new film, The Fall. The Fall focuses on the mental health of jockeys. Here's a short clip from my chat with Nathan.
My English teacher would be turning in his grave knowing that Horrocks had written a script, because I was absolutely awful at school. I was always called out for being nothing but a dreamer, always looking out the window, really. So it was quite surprising this kind of came out of me. But I put this thing together and I showed it to Paul Struthers of the Professional Jockeys Association, and he was immediately taken with it because it was a completely different look at what horse racing is. You you look at all the famous films that have been made about horse racing. They're all,
it's always
about
glory,
celebration.
Yeah, it's glory.
It's a glory story. Yeah. Absolutely. And I love those films. I love those. The champions, the sea biscuits of the world. The secretariats. And to me, they're sometimes a little bit unrealistic. In some because you've got to make it, like a dreamlike story. But I wanted to show a different side of racing. I wanted to show a side of racing that I've seen and I still see. When I'm doing my jockey cam work, I'm in the changing room on a regular basis. I can see those signs when someone's not having a good day. They don't quite show it to the rest of the world, but I recognise that person because that was me at that time as well. You see, so it was a real cathartic thing for me to get this story down. And Paul Struthers read it and said, "You've got to do something with this. You've got to get it finished, or we've got to try and get it funded." And he offered, offered some money to pay for it, and it just wasn't enough to get it going. So we kind of pitched this thing around, and the Even Keel Foundation, which is a charity for men with mental health, was put together by a lady called Sam Hillier. And she said she'd help fund this as well, but it still wasn't quite enough because we wanted to do a really good job of this. And it's like building a house. If you want to build a decent house, you've got to have the funding to make it. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit like that with making a film. Really, they do cost a lot of money to make if you're going to do them properly. So, lucky enough, Nigel Payne, who used to be chief executive at the Professional Jockeys Association, who is now trustee of the Sir Peter O'Sullivan Charitable Trust, he read the script and immediately said, "How much do you need to make this?" And I told him I needed a certain amount, and he was like, "Right, here's the money. Go and make it the best it can possibly be." The important thing we all need to understand that jockeys are supreme athletes first and foremost. But the other thing that we don't understand is, we see them as stars of our sport, so we think that they're fine financially and doing well in life. We see them as they're superstars of racing. What we don't understand is they're freelancers. If they don't ride, they don't get paid, and that brings a certain amount of pressure if you're at a certain level of rider. Even at the top, that brings pressure because you want to. If you're at the top, you still want to be riding them big races and them big winners. But even the guys, in the middle or even in the lower table of the jockeys list, they're always going to be struggling to make ends meet. Sometimes, because they're always chasing the next ride because there's always somebody else to take your place, and that can be a frightening world to live in. And what I wanted to show is that can bring a whole world of pressure to an athlete when you're always chasing the next paycheck and making sure that not only the ride that you had that day is important, but the one you're going to be getting in the future. You're always trying to keep everybody happy. So you've constantly got to be showing happiness and professionalism in that world. So the only time they get to really let go of that is in the car journey home, because they can't really be showing it at home, and they definitely can't be showing it in front of their peers in the changing room. You've got to be on show all the time.
Co-director of the film, who also played the role of the trainer, was Robert Bathurst of Cold Feet and Downton Abbey fame. Robert joined me on the podcast to discuss the film and his love of the turf.
My interest in the game is enormous. I mean, especially in the jumps, although increasingly in the flat. Actually, I've been very, very drawn to the flat this year, especially listening to the Nick Nut Daily podcast. I don't know if you've listened to that, but it's
certainly do. Yes, yeah,
brilliant daily summation of what's going on in the flat, which I've always found too confusing to really engage with. But anyway, he's opened that up for me. It's I've always loved the game. I love the journalism of it. I love the language of racing. I love the characters in it. I like the smell of it. And so when Nathan wanted to talk about it, this idea, I literally jumped at it. And I thought this would be really, really interesting to be part of.
The Paddock and the Pavilion added an international flavour in episode 51. when I spoke to the award-winning American racing journalist and author Jay Hovde about the Kentucky Derby, the Run for the Roses. And what makes the Kentucky Derby so special as a horse race and for Americans?
Well, it's certainly the most hyped race, heavily promoted race in the world that ever was. Let's face it. It's synonymous with horse racing in the farthest corners of the world. I would think that the race itself is distinctive in its distance and its timing. A May race where some of these horses aren't even a full 3 years old yet physically. But from the standpoint of just general interest, we seem to focus on the Kentucky Derby more than any other horse race, simply because of the momentum of history and the great. We're approaching the 147th running, which I know is kind of a drop in the bucket compared to your Derby, but still, it's the longest running major race in this country, rivaled only by races like the Travers and the Belmont Stakes.
Yeah, I see. You're a bit behind us. We got underway in 1780.
Yeah, well, you had to do something after independence. You had to. You didn't have us to kick around anymore, so you just started your Derby.
And I read that in the States, it's known as the most exciting 2 minutes in sport.
Yeah, that's and again, it's part of the hype, part of the advertising genius of the people that are behind it. I would imagine you'd get some arguments from anyone who watched some of the great Tom Brady go through the last 2 minutes of any Super Bowl that he needed a touchdown, or the last 2 minutes of any encounter between Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. But yes, for a sporting event that takes only 2 minutes of your time to appreciate, it's pretty intense, and you do tend to hold your breath for 2 minutes.
And I went down under, I wish, via Zoom to chat to leading Australian trainer Richard Friedman. Richard talked fondly about Sub-Zero, the 1992 Melbourne Cup winner. After retiring from racing, the Grey became a celebrity down under. Reading Sub-Zero was a bit of a sort of celebrity. Didn't he appear on television and things like that?
Yeah, well, he's one of. I classed him as the world's greatest thoroughbred till he died, which was only just a few months ago. And he won a Melbourne Cup. He then became the clerk of the course at Flemington Racecourse in Melbourne. He did that for 10 or 15 years. And then when he retired from that, he started to visit nursing homes, hospitals, hospices, and they would take him into the hospital. They had special shoes, padded shoes made for him, and take him up in the elevator to a ward, and he would just walk along the ward visiting the children. And the amount of pleasure that horse gave to the elderly, the infirm, the sick children, dying children was quite astounding. And, if you ever get a chance to get on the net and see some vision of what that horse did, it'll bring a tear to your eye.
Oh, that will remind people in this country about Red Rum, who appeared on the Sports Personality of the Year show one year and went up in the lift, and also attended lots of other events as well. So horses can obviously do a lot of good when they're in the presence of children and people who are not well.
Yes, they can bring a lot of joy to them. And, the more opportunities we get to introduce horses to people who need a bit of help, the better.
One of the most popular stories in the UK media during 2021 was the successful campaign to save Park Lane stables in Teddington, southwest London, who were facing closure unless they raised £1 million to buy the freehold. Park Lane stables do such amazing work for disabled people in the local community. I was extremely lucky to speak to Natalie O'Rourke, Park Lane's hardworking and inspirational manager, both before and after they raised the money. What's your reaction now after the crowdfunding appeal has ended?
Well, just total gratitude, to be honest, to everybody that's got behind us. I mean, the really amazing thing is that we did this with the power of the people. We didn't get any big corporates behind us. We didn't get any money from our governing bodies. It was pure and simple, the power of the people. Elliot's disagreeing with me, but
yeah, he's shaking his head in the background there. Yeah,
he's shaking his head. But no, it was pure and simple people power. And I don't know if this is the right time to mention this, but there was one gentleman from the racing industry. So he's a racehorse owner, and he doesn't want his name to be put out there. But he came in at a really pivotal time because we'd kind of stalled. What had happened was all the local people had given support. I'd saturated my social media. So I'd basically spoken to every single person that I knew, or every single person that had ever been here, and they donated. So we were kind of like, yeah, we'd stalled is a really good way of putting it. And somebody came forward that was a racehorse owner, and I had an hour on the phone with him, and he asked me loads of questions. You know, it was a bit like Dragon's Den, and I didn't know where the conversation was going. And at the end of the conversation, he said, I'm going to give you £50,000. And I just couldn't believe it. I mean, I was thinking, what do I say? Do I say wow, or do I say oh? And I was trying really hard to like measure my sort of reaction to him. But anyway, he came through good as his word, and he pledged £50,000. But what happened was then that gave me personally like a massive boost to carry on. I thought, yes. He just came in at the right time to give us the boost that we needed. But also, I think it made a few other people go, oh, hang on, somebody's, you know, given them a big chunk there and believes in them. And it's got other people to donate as well. And then he spoke to a few of his friends in the racing industry that are racehorse owners as well, and they put in significant amounts. So although, like, we're kind of like worlds apart from the racing industry, because like you know, we've got cobs and sort of safe as houses type ponies and horses here. But what was just so heartwarming for us was that the racing industry got behind us and really believed in us and wanted to support us and really wanted us to be successful. And that was so amazing for us, and we're really, really grateful. And I hope that they all know what a massive difference they made to us.
It's been a roller coaster year for Natalie and everyone at Park Lane Stables. After major discussions with the landlord, Natalie finally got the keys back to the Teddington site last December. Natalie, who I plan to interview again on the podcast in the near future, said last week that they plan to move back permanently to Teddington in the spring. As Natalie said on TV, dreams do come true. And in the New Year's Honours List, many of you will have heard that Natalie received a letter from the Queen informing her she had been awarded an MBE. If ever someone deserved an award, Natalie did. In May 2021, Sky Sports released The Uncomfortable Race, a horse racing documentary presented by Josh Apiafi, which focused on the sport's struggles with diversity and inclusion. Josh interviewed Kanan Francis, Callum Helliwell, and Elijah Michael about their own experiences in the sport. I was joined by Josh in episode 61 to talk about the programme and the way forward. Sometimes it needs to be uncomfortable to actually get action taken to put things right.
Agreed. Absolutely. Nothing happens from jovial conversations and off we go. It happens from having difficult conversations. It happens from trying new things. It's adversity to risk. You know, there's all sorts of things that you've got to look at and work out. If we go down this route, if it doesn't work, we can stop and then we can go down another one. But it also, I think one of my roles, or self-appointed roles, is also now to make it feels safe for the sport to move down this route. There is no risk whatsoever for this sport to become more diverse. It needs to, because it's linking it and localizing it to why should I give a monkeys about the horse sport being embracing diversity and inclusion. So I've got to localize that. So if it's about the funding mechanism we've talked about already in this podcast about the media rights and how tomorrow's media rights are going to be paid for by a section or a generation coming through which currently are not engaged with our sport, and they are with others, and bookmakers are going to gravitate towards those others because they're cheaper. That's one way. So that's how all racecourses are funded, who are some of the most powerful organisations in our sport. That's what they've got to realise. But at the end of the day, those chief executives in those roles at those racecourses or in those senior organisations are probably only going to be there for 5 years. Statistically, it's around 5 or 6 years you're a chief executive. I'm talking about 10 years' time. So now you're talking about legacy stuff that you've got to invest now for perhaps when you're not here. Perhaps when I'm not here, because, who knows how long we're going to be on the planet. But equally, we've got to invest. And it shouldn't be about what your annual bonus is, because you've squeezed as much as possible out of this last 12 months, no matter what period we've been through. It should be that you're building something towards... it's like we're all shareholders of the sport at the end of the day, and we want to increase the share price of the sport. And I seriously worry if we don't, that share price in the sport will be dropping significantly over the next 10 years.
Later in episode 87, it's about opening it up. I was joined by Callum to discuss what progress is being made.
We call ourselves a sport of kings, which is good and bad, I think. I think you do find yourselves racing as an elite sport. It always has been an elite sport. It's very much in that realm of Formula One, where money talks, and you just look at the sales at tax, and the money that goes around for these untried horses is crazy money. But we are not a society that is ruled by kings anymore. We're a society which is very diverse, very different, multilingual, multicultural. We should be encouraging that on our race courses. I think the cold face of all of this is on our race courses. Where are we going to see the different faces at a Royal Ascot, at Cheltenham? I'm going to Cheltenham tomorrow. Can't wait. Very excited. I know I won't see on a racecourse, actually not working at the event. It's something I'll bring up in a second, but not working on the racecourse, I may see less than 20 other faces who are not white. I think that's something that we really need to look at. Why are we not attractive to people who are not from similar backgrounds to what we're seeing on racecourses? What are we doing that isn't attractive? Because this isn't a new problem. This is a problem that we've known for a long time. And whether we want to call it a problem or not, it's an issue. So what are we doing to address that issue? And what are we not doing at the moment that's leading people not to want to come? And I think that's crucial. And I think there are plenty, and I think it's all about data. There are plenty of people far smarter than me which can access that data, break that data down, and understand where it's coming from. So hopefully in the future, and the thing I want to see immediately happen is I don't just want to see black people behind the bar serving pints. I don't want to see black people just bust in working in restaurants. I want to see black people enjoying a day at the races. I want to see different people of different cultures, people of different religion, people of different sexual orientations. I don't care who you are if you come along and enjoy the day out, because it's a great day out, Stephen. You and I both know that. It is a cracking day. And I can't wait to get there. I can't wait to get to Cheltenham. I haven't been there for years, so I'm very, very excited. And I just hope that one day maybe I'll get to Cheltenham and I'll just see a few more different faces and a few more people all enjoying the day. And hopefully that's where we'll go. That's what I'm looking for.
Are you positive that British racing can embrace more diversity and inclusion over the next few years? It doesn't want to be long term. It needs to be relatively short term, that things do change.
Absolutely. I believe in the people who are currently out there trying to make change. And I think that the great thing about this conference that I was at Windsor was that it was full of people who were not just ideas people, they were doers. And there are lots of great ideas. But when you can go to these sorts of events and everyone's got great ideas, but as soon as the event finishes, everyone goes home and doesn't think about it. I was surrounded by great people who had good thoughts, but knew how to execute those thoughts, knew how to create plans, and just doing that next step. And I think we're very lucky to have some very, very smart people within this industry, very, very good people who all want to make changes to make sure this industry remains sustainable. And because if we don't, it won't be sustainable. And we'll all lose the sport we love so much. So I'm glad. I think we're in really good hands, and I think things will only improve. And to all those people on Twitter who have a different opinion, that's absolutely fine too. But we have evidence that we're making a change, and I don't see the evidence of remaining the same is going to work.
Let's hope Callum's optimism proves correct. The future of horse racing depends on it being more diverse and open to all. Just like the cricket with Roland Butcher, I've enjoyed the company of racing experts, trainer John Berry and former jockey and BBC presenter Richard Pittman. John let me know his favourite racing memory in episode 5, while Richard remembered his first ride for Fred Winter's stable back in 1964.
Well, if I look in the wider world, I would say Shergar. I was lucky enough to be at Ascot when he won the King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Diamond Stakes in July 1981 when I was 15. And of course, he'd already won the Derby effortlessly. With a slightly less flamboyant victory in the Irish Derby. I was cheeky enough, the wonderful old unsaddling enclosure with those lions and the marble steps that's sadly gone forever. The iconic winners' enclosure. As he was led away in the ropes, nowadays there's double railings of white plastic railings and everything. Before it was just a rope separating the horse from the crowd. I was cheeky enough to lean across the rope and pat him as he walked, as he was being led away. And for a racing obsessed 15-year-old boy from Scotland to be at Ascot, seeing one of the greatest horses ever winning a great race and patting him afterwards was very, very special. So, yeah, I'd say of the wider world, I'd say Shergar.
What a great opportunity to start with Fred Winter, the former champion jockey, legend, really.
Well, I went to him because I knew that he would be successful. He was such a strong man with great connections. And we only had 6 horses when I joined him the first week. 3 of us were there, but they quickly grew because he had a winner straight away. Jay Trump, who went on to win the National in his first year, was a winner. They say it was his first runner. It actually wasn't. I went off 10 minutes earlier at Ludlow on a horse called 177, who he was the only one who could ride him at home because he pulled so hard. And so I tootle off to Ludlow. Tommy Smith, the American amateur, went to Sandown for Jade Trump. And Fred said to me, "You won't hold this horse. You can't hold him at home. You won't hold him in a race. So what I want you to do is at the starting tape, face the opposite way to the way the horses are going to go. And then when the tapes go up, turn round and follow him behind." Well, we did that. And I couldn't hold him, 14 runners. He burst his way through the field. Quickly round the first bend at Ludlow is a fence. He saw the fence and went, "Yahoo!" and stood off so far. I'd never ridden anything of this class. And he pulled me out of the saddle because I hadn't slipped the reins. And he pulled me out like a stone out of a catapult. And I landed running in front of him. I landed on the other side when he was still jumping the fence. It was quite incredible. I got a real kicking. And when I got home, Fred said, "Well, you learn by your mistakes. You won't get another ride for 3 months." So that's how you learn. So people who think that Jay Trump was his first runner are incorrect. I was on his first runner, 177, but it ended only about 30 seconds after it started.
After his Grade 2 win yesterday at Warwick on Stag Horn, I thought I should squeeze in Nick Schofield. Great ride, by the way, Nick. Nick joined me in episode 38. In this clip, I asked Nick how he got started in jump racing.
Yeah, well, from my mother and father, my mum used to sort of like show horses and things like that. My dad was a point-to-point jockey. He was champion in 1989, national champion. He's since passed away, but I think I used to go to the point-to-points and, amateur races, and he took me to Cheltenham and all the race courses. And I used to ride a lot of ponies when I was younger. I sort of, from probably as soon as I could walk, I was on a horse. So I did a lot of showing when I was sort of under 10 years old. I won a Horse of the Year show, Royal International, the Royal, all over the country, riding for different people. And then I sort of went into show jumping after 10 and represented England and did a lot of things. Rode at Horse of the Year show, Royal International, Hickstead, and did all of that. And, you know, I think my mother wanted me to get an education and carry on the show jumping because it was all going very well. But because I got that bug off my father, you know, being a jockey, that was the route I wanted to go down. And as soon as sort of I was 16, I was booked in to go to college, and someone my dad knew had won in novice riders race at a local point at Black Forest Lodge, and he was a blacksmith. The fellow that trained it, it was of course a mare called No Way a Lady, and she wasn't biggest, but she had previous good form. And anyway, I sort of had my first ride there, you know, thought I was a proper jockey, rode really short, toe in the iron, and, you know, like all the gear, no idea sort of thing. And anyway, I was going right around the inside, like everything was going, looking like the winner. Come to the last ditch, must have seen a stride that not even AP McCoy would have thought was possible. Outside the wings, going for a big picture. Anyway, she didn't quite make it, and, you know, turned the somersault and broke my collarbone. So my first ride was a bit of a disaster.
Finally, to end this celebration of my horse racing clips, I thought we should hear again from one of our most popular guests, Richard Pittman.
Well, it's a pleasure, and every day is Christmas. At my age, when there's more behind you than in front of you, every day is Christmas.
That's the 100 up. I hope you have enjoyed this horse racing compilation. It was great fun to make. I would like to thank all my guests, friends and contacts who have supported me during the year, and all you listeners. Do keep listening to the Paddock and the Pavilion in 2022.
Thank you for listening to the Paddock and the Pavilion. You can download the show on Apple Podcasts,
Amazon Music,
SoundCloud, Stitcher and Spotify.
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at the Pad and Pav. Don't forget, if you like the show, please do leave us a rating and review.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Feel the whoa with Listerine at BJ's. You can save $2.50 now on Listerine products like Total Care Anti-Cavity Fluoride Fresh Mint Mouthwash or Cool Mint Pocket Packs Fresh Breath Strips at your nearest BJ's location. Experience the feeling of a million germs zapped in seconds with Listerine. Discount available through December 24th. Save now only at BJ's.